So the oil spill in the Gulf of Mexico is getting worse. But what's going to happen? What are we going to do with it? And how are the people going to recover? Let's go to an expert, a U.S. Navy, former U.S. Navy salvage expert who's been up in the Exxon Valdez area, and now he's been in the Gulf of Mexico, and right here is with us. Marc Jones tonight on Public Exposure. I'm Stan Emmert. Wow, that was a long introduction, wasn't it, Marc?
Oh, sure. Okay.
So you're a former Navy guy,
Right.
who, and your job was to salvage things, right?
Correct. And in the Navy, oil spill response falls to that part of the Navy, not to aviators or boat drivers or submarine guys. It goes to Navy divers.
But being in salvage, you kind of had to recover all sorts of things where there were crashes, and you went in after to clean things up.
Crashed airplanes, boats that got beached and they couldn't get them back off, ships with holes in them, all kinds of stuff like that.
Well, I've got to show a picture, and this is a modern U.S. Navy recovery operations, and I think we were talking before, you did quite a lot of diving yourself, but it wasn't in such a cool suit like this.
I did dive in that suit, but most of my career I was what they called a copper collar worker.
What's a copper collar worker?
That was a guy who used the old brass Navy Mark V, that big, heavy brass, actually it's made of spun copper helmet that you see in 10,000 leagues beneath the sea.
Really? Did you sink right to the bottom?
Well, yeah. I mean, if you, each shoe weighs 35 pounds, it'll take you to the bottom in a hurry.
And as part of, you were with the Navy and actually in the reserves when the Exxon Valdez beached?
Correct.
And you got a phone call.
I was reading my newspaper on Easter morning, the phone rang, and it was the supervisor of salvage, and he was calling me to ask if I could go up to Valdez, and he said, I'd like you to volunteer, but let me make it clear, you're going to go whether you volunteer or not.
Yeah. And we're having some technical difficulties because we have some really great pictures that we'd like to be able to show. If we can get them up, that we will. But so you got this call and you were told, okay, it's time for you to go up there and clean that stuff up.
Well, in truth, as the representative for the supervisor of salvage, back at that time, the largest store of oil spill response equipment belonged to the Navy supervisor of salvage. And under the provisions of the Clean Water Act, the Coast Guard could and still can activate Navy assets from the supervisor of salvage and put them to work on what they call spills of national significance.
Mm-hmm. So, I mean, how did you feel though going up there cleaning up an oil company's mess?
It was great. I got to go to Valdez and do a good job, and I thought it was terrific. It was one of the most important things that happened in my life.
Mm-hmm. So, Steve, we don't have video either, right? Okay. So now I got my marching orders. I can understand what we're going to do here. And when you got up there, what did you find? I mean, how many days after did you?
Well, I got up there. Let's see. The actual accident happened on Friday. And I got up there and got actually to Valdez on Wednesday. I got up on Tuesday and got to Valdez on Wednesday. And by that time, it was totally madcap. The press from all over the world was there. I mean, I had a crew follow me into the bathroom once. It was just insane. All kinds of people running around. I mean, it was truly bizarre.
So obviously you were trying to clean up the oil as quickly as you could. What were you doing to clean it up?
Well, in the case of Exxon Valdez, the amount of equipment that they had in Valdez compared to the size of the oil spill was like you were really kind of trying to empty your bathtub with a teaspoon. You can do it, but it's going to take a long, long, long time. And that was kind of where they were, and that was why they went and got the Navy's equipment. But I don't think anyone had ever anticipated at that point having to deal with 11 million gallons of spilled oil, particularly in an environment like that, which was, physically challenging as well.
What were the physical challenges? Just being cold?
Valdez gets more snow than anywhere in America. And I mean, in the wintertime there, and March is still wintertime there. You drive around in what are like tunnels, and
Tunnels of snow.
yeah, I mean, and in
So that was the atmosphere, but now were you out on the water or were you on the beach or where
for the
were
most part, as the Supervisors of Salaries representative, I was on the beach. I did a lot of flying over what was going on, but I spent time on the water with our crews and on our boats. But most of the time, that's a kind of an executive level job, so you're getting...
So you were the suit?
Yeah, very much the suit, actually, in the sense of, you know, that was the joke, that even though I got around and looked at a lot of things and that sort of thing, I seldom wore my uniform. If I showed up in my uniform, you knew you were in trouble.
Now, if we could show the picture, one of the pictures that we would show would be on the beach, guys with sprayers. This is from 1989. Guys with sprayers, and I thought that they were spraying dispersants, but instead they were just...
That was hot water.
Hot water?
Yeah.
They were just cleaning off
The
and
idea
pushing it
was,
back into the sound?
idea was that the hot water would loosen up the
here we are.
oil that had washed ashore, and it would, you know, flow down the beach where skimmers could pick it up. And but it didn't quite work totally that way. The hot water, the oil went down into the beach after it got heated up, and it's still there.
It's still there. You know, actually, can we go to a video? Are we able to get video? If we are, the one we want is the very first one, the one of the fishermen. This was from 2008, almost 20 years later. And you actually also worked in the fishing industry up in
Yeah, that's
Mexico,
actually what I do now, is I'm a consultant to the fishing industry.
All right, here we are. Lessons from the Exxon Valdez
Cordova
oil
is
spill.
the epicenter of the aftermath of the Exxon Valdez oil spill. 1989, in March of 1989, when that tanker went aground, Cordova was alive with herring fishermen. It wasn't quite herring season yet, but almost. We were just weeks away from our spring herring season, and that oil spill occurred. And bombers full of oil dispersants started flying over Prince William Sound, and they didn't know a school of herring from an oil slick, and they bombed those schools of herring with chemical dispersants. And herring came up at night and sucked air to fill swim bladders and air bladders and sucked in oil, and they spawned on oily beaches. And son of a gun, the doggone herring died off. They're just pretty much gone. In 1994, the fishermen and others sued Exxon to recover the damages that they were going to receive, or that they had received from the spill. And we had a court settlement that basically awarded about $230 million in compensatory damages, money to pay us back for the damages we'd received. And then a $5 billion punitive award that was supposed to take care of the downstream damages that had yet to occur from the oil spill, because it was 1994, and we still didn't know how much that would impact us. Here it is, 2008. The Supreme Court just said that we could only really deserved another $250 million to supposedly pay us back for compensatory damages, all based on 1994, but the damages didn't stop. In Prince William Sound, there's still stinky, lingering, thickly goopified oil right under the gravel on a lot of the beaches. The herring population hasn't recovered. I have 2 herring permits. Let's make it personal. I got 2 herring permits. I did the math. I had 2 herring permits. They were worth $75,000 a piece in 1989, 1990. They are today worth 0. So that's about $150,000. I had about $50,000 worth of herring harvest equipment that I've had to liquidate. That's $200,000. We've gone 15 of the last 20 years with no herring harvest. That's about another $380,000. So the damages just to my family, a small family fishing operation, is over $500,000 in the last 19 years. Our checks to settle up from the damages supposedly from Exxon 20 years later won't equal 10% of that. So the lesson from these big oil spills is A, the oil companies won't make you whole, and B, the damage is still going on 20 years later, and there is no way fishing dependent or natural resource dependent communities will ever recover from major oil spills, at least during the lifetime of the people who were there when the spill happens.
All right, so there we are, $500,000 at least lost by that family. 20 years later, the oil is still there, and let's talk about that, but first we're going to take a break.